Greetings, friends. In this third video on qualitative research, we're going to take a look at one particular kind of qualitative research called grounded theory. And what grounded theory is it's a systematic, there's a way, a plan, a way of going about this, a systematic qualitative procedure used to generate a theory that explains at a conceptual level an action or an interaction about a substantive topic. In shorthand, what grounded theory is a way to look at a situation and then to help people understand what is going on by generating themes that explain that particular phenomenon. And the grounded part of grounded theory is that what grounds or provides the justification for a particular conclusion are the events that you observe or the interviews that you have. So how do you do grounded theory? Well, grounded theory starts right down here with data collection. And what you'll do is you will do interviews or take field notes, or you'll have some kind of material that you will use as your data. You take that data and you organize it. If it's an interview, you create a transcription, and then you read through it. And you get a general sense of that data. Then out of that data, you'll start coding chunks of that data. So there will be a particular statement that someone made, and you'll identify the underlying idea in that statement, or you might pull out a word that characterizes that statement and you code it. And after you code it, you go back around and maybe you collect more data and you go through this process again and again and again. That's why we call it iterative, because you're constantly going around collecting more data, coding information, and so on. But you're also doing this as well. You're starting to look for themes that explain what's going on, and you might come up with 2 or 3 themes that explain the initial data, and you go back and maybe do some more interviews and you come up with some more data, and next thing you know, you have more themes that you're developing. So this process, if you can imagine these as being iterative and constantly circulating, you get the idea of what grounded theory, the process of grounded theory is all about. Another way of conceptualizing it is to think about these two processes. You're reading through the data, you're dividing it into segments, you're coding it. You look for redundancy or ways to collapse those codes into fewer codes, and then you end up with themes. So these go together. Here you have many pages of text, many segments, maybe 30 or 40 codes, maybe 20 codes, and at the end you're reduced to just a very few themes. How do you code data? Well, coding data is basically just taking whatever data you have, dividing it into chunks, and then giving those chunks a particular name. We have 3 different ways of coding data. You might look at something and it evokes an image in your mind of what that particular chunk might be all about. A common way of doing it is what's called in vivo codes, which you actually take a word and look at that word. I mean, a word from the code. I'm sorry, a word from the chunk or the section, and use that to identify what that section is all about. Or there might be something in the lit review that reminded you of, or that particular data point reminds you of something in the literature, and use that. So when you when you're actually going through and analyzing an interview, it might look something like this. This is obviously very neat and something took a lot of time. But on this side, they have the codes going on here. And here are the themes. Remember, we talked about going back and forth on the coding side and back and forth on the theme side. So right here, you actually have the beginnings of the code. Now, and this is all one example. This is called in vivo coding because they use actually terms from the interview to actually do the coding from. You could have chosen something else, but you get the idea of what's going on here. And like I said, you take those codes and you group them into themes, and from the themes, or you into larger sections and smaller sections, and finally you group into themes. And those themes should give the reader a good idea of your understanding of what is going on. Now, once you're done with all of that, then you write things up. And in qualitative research, what you're looking for is a way of communicating to the people who are looking at or reading your study. You want more than just to communicate the information. One of the big advantages of qualitative research is the ability to connect with the people who are being studied. You use words from their own mouth. You let them tell their story, but you let them tell it with feeling and rich description. In fact, the term that's used is thick, rich description. And in the articles that we'll be reading in this course on qualitative research, you will see extensive use of quotes and language. And sometimes that language is very, very moving, which is the advantage that a lot of people see in qualitative research. It lets you get closer to the subjects. Well, that gives you a brief introduction to grounded theory, and we'll be actually conducting a qualitative research project in class and using grounded theory as our interpretive model.